Hello, thank you for visiting this training video hosted by DXC Technology. Today I'm going to show you how to enroll a new individual provider in the Provider Management module for Vermont Medicaid. Before we begin, please note that this video is intended for informational purposes only and does not guarantee approval of your enrollment in Vermont Medicaid. If you have further questions regarding Vermont Medicaid's enrollment criteria, please contact the Enrollment Department at DXC Technology at 802-879-4450, option 4, or you can email us at vtproviderenrollment@dxc.com. For today's presentation, I'm going to start on the homepage of the Provider Management module. You can access a link to the module by visiting www.vtmedicaid.com and click on the Enrollment tab. So to begin a new enrollment, you're first going to click on the menu button located in the top left-hand corner of the homepage. You're going to hover over Provider Enrollment and click the New Enrollment button. This is going to bring you to the welcome page of the module. The welcome page is designed to give you some information regarding what you may need in order to complete your application. It's important to have these pieces of information handy, as it's going to make your application run much faster and smoother throughout the process. So once you've gathered the information requested, you can go ahead and hit Start. The first thing that's going to populate is going to be the registration page. This page is designed to gather information regarding who is going to manage this application. This is important because it's going to give you an application tracking number, and you're going to need that if you ever have to resume your application or if you have to check the enrollment status after you've submitted. So you want to enter your email address and a password. You can also enter a provider reference if you so choose. This is purely for your internal purposes. It's intended so that you can track which application that you're working on. So if you want to put a reference in there, by all means, go right ahead. And once you've entered all the necessary information, you can click Register. So once you click Register, it is going to process through and it's going to create a new application for you. This will generate your tracking number, which is located right here. And it's also going to tell you that it has sent an email with this tracking number to the email address you registered. So you don't necessarily have to take this down right now. It will populate an email so you can reference it later. You can hit OK, and you will notice too that it will give you your tracking number up top here throughout the application if you need to reference it. So the first piece of information that you are going to need to fill out will be the initial enrollment information. Here you're going to tell us what type of enrollment this is and what provider type you are enrolling. So today we're enrolling an individual provider. Once you select the enrollment type, you're going to get a warning box that just tells you once you've selected the enrollment type and you navigate past this first general information tab, you're not going to be able to go back and change it. If you navigated past the page and you had to go back to change it, you would need to start a new application. So I'm going to hit OK. Next, I'm going to choose my provider type, and today I'm going to be a physician. And again, it's going to populate a little warning box that says you also cannot change the provider type once you have navigated past this page. So you want to hit OK. So it's really important to make sure that these two pieces of information are correct before you navigate away from this page and move on. So once you've entered your enrollment type and provider type, you can select an effective date. So you want to enter your effective date here. And then you can navigate down to the provider information, and you can choose whether you're an individual or a business. Today we're an individual, so I'm going to enter my information here. This would be the provider's information. So if you're a credentialer, you want to enter the provider's information here. You can enter the gender and ethnicity if you choose to. You will notice that anything with a blue asterisk is required. These fields, the middle name, suffix, gender, ethnicity, don't have those blue asterisks, so it is not required that you enter it. You will also notice that there is field level help. So if you hover over these little question marks here, it will tell you what's needed in those fields if you have a question about what you should be putting into any particular field. I'm going to go ahead and enter in a birth date and a social security number because I am an individual. And then I also have to enter an MPI. After that, it's going to give me 3 questions here. This is really geared to understand if I've had any enrollment involvement in Vermont Medicaid in the past. So it's going to say, are you currently enrolled as a provider? If you were to choose yes here, it's going to give you a red box. That red box basically means stop, because are you actually here to revalidate? The revalidation process is different than creating a new enrollment. So if that was the case, you would simply hit yes, and it's going to bring you back to the home page in order to revalidate. Today we're not here to revalidate, so we're going to hit no, and I'm going to say I'm not currently enrolled. This is the same as if you were previously enrolled as a provider. You could hit yes, and you could tell us what your previous provider identifier was. What is your 7-digit provider number that you were given previously in your enrollment? Again, for today, we're going to hit no. And then it's going to ask you if you're Medicare enrolled. I'm going to say yes, and you'll notice it doesn't populate any information to enter right away, but later in the application it will ask us for the Medicare information. The next box that's required is to state what programs you will be enrolling in with Vermont Medicaid. There is only one, so you want to just drop the box down and hit fee for service only. The next information is the contact information. So this is just the contact information for this application. So this may be the provider, but it may also be a credentialer or an office manager, whoever wants to be contacted regarding this particular application. So it's going to ask for the address, and you'll notice that once I tab past the zip code, it's going to process through the USPS software to verify that address. It will give me a recommendation if it doesn't match exactly. For instance, I didn't enter the last 4 in the zip code, so it's populated that for me. So I'm going to accept the changes by simply clicking here in this box. But if you didn't want to accept the changes, you could simply X out. I'm going to put in a phone type. So today I'm going to put in my work number. If you had an extension or a fax number, you could enter it here. I am going to enter an email address. You'll notice that it is not required as there is no blue asterisk. However, down below, if you enter that your preferred communication is email, you wouldn't be able to navigate past this page without entering an email address. We highly recommend that your preferred communication is email, as notifications regarding your enrollment will come much faster if they are able to be emailed to you. However, this is your preference. You can choose email or mail. So once you have entered all of this information, you can hit Save and Continue in the right-hand corner. However, before you do so, please just make sure that the enrollment type and the provider type at the very beginning is exactly as you want it, because once I hit Save and Continue, I can't change these pieces of information. So I have verified and I am sure, so I'm going to hit Save and Continue. So once I hit Save and Continue, it's going to process this first page and it's going to bring me on to the next page of our application. You'll notice that now that I have navigated past the first page, it's become white. The current page that you're on is always yellow, and any pages that you have not completed yet are blue. It is required that you go step by step in the beginning. I can't skip down to, say, page 10 here. I have to go 1, 2, 3, and so on. But once you have navigated and saved a page, you can go back to that page to change information, except for the enrollment and provider type that we had mentioned in the beginning. So I'm on page 2, which is the specialties page. You'll notice that my provider type is listed here. So in order for me to add a specialty, I'm going to simply hit Create New. And it's going to bring up a box to add my specialty. There must be at least one specialty that is marked primary, so I'm going to make this one my primary specialty. And there's a drop down of specialties that I can choose from. The list of specialties that you see is dependent upon the provider type that you chose. So you're not going to see every specialty available in Vermont Medicaid for enrolling, but what you are going to see is every specialty that is listed as being allowed with that provider type. So I'm going to choose general practice, and then I need to choose my taxonomy. And again, I have a drop-down box, and what I see in this drop-down box depends on the specialty that I chose, just like the specialty depends on the provider type. Because I chose general practice, I can choose from a list of taxonomies allowed with general practice. And I'm going to choose acute care for today. I have to choose an effective date, so I'll just put that as today's date. And I'm going to hit save. And now you'll notice that my specialty is listed here and I have a primary. If I had multiple specialties, I would simply hit create new again and add another specialty and just not mark it as primary because I already have a primary set. If I wanted to edit something, so say I chose the wrong taxonomy, I can simply click the pencil icon. It's going to bring that field right back up for us, and I could drop the box down and choose a different specialty and hit save. That will make the changes for us so we can move on. So once you've entered all applicable specialties, you're going to hit save and continue. And now we are going to navigate on to the addresses page. So the first address that we have to enter here for this individual application is the service location. So you can enter in a billing name for the service location. For an individual provider, for your claims billing, we will use the last and first name of the provider. So the billing name here could be anything that you would like. You have to enter in the contact information for the service location. So this could be the same contact information as your application contact information located on the first page that we filled out, but it also could be a different contact depending upon your particular service location. So you want to make sure that you enter in the address here. And you're going to notice that once I enter in this address information, it is also going to go through that USPS software. Every address that you enter into the module is verified through that software. So every time you enter it, it's going to go through that. So I'm going to tab past the zip code, and it's going to take a moment, and it's going to process that address. And once again, I'm going to go ahead and select the changes by just clicking in the box. Next, I'm going to enter my email address for the service location. So again, this could be the same as your contact information in the beginning, but it could be different depending upon your practice. So I'm going to put my address, and then I also need to include at least one phone number for the service location. So I'm going to click Create New over here, and it's going to populate a box for me to enter in my phone. I'm going to say that this is my work phone. Enter the number here. If I had an extension, I could enter it, but it's not required. And then I'm going to hit save. If you had multiple numbers that you wanted to report, you could simply click Create New again and enter in as many phone numbers as you would like. So I also have to enter in some service address information. We're going to ask you for your hours of operation. So you're going to check the box, which is going to open up another box in order for you to give us that piece of information. So again, I'm going to click Create New. And you'll notice that the module is very consistent and it operates the same way. So every time you see a box like this, you hit Create New in order to populate the field. So you have a lot of different options as far as days go. You can select every day, you can select particular days, you have the option to select just weekdays or weekends. It just depends again on your practice. To, for today, I'm going to select that we're open every day, and I'm going to select that we're open 24 hours a day, and I'm going to hit save. If you had multiple days with different varying hours, you could have multiple entries. You could do one just for Monday, one just for Tuesday. It really just depends. So you would just hit create new again and continue your entries. We're going to ask if the service location is ADA compliant and if it's accessible by public transportation. And then we're going to ask you what your after hours arrangements are. I am open 24 hours a day, so I'm just going to say that I'm open. But if you had a phone service or something of that nature, you have the option to put your phone here to tell us where they can call if it's after hours. The next required address is a pay to address. So you have the option here to either type in the information on your own, or if the information is the same as the service location, you can simply click this box and it's going to populate your service location information automatically so that you don't have to keep retyping it. But again, if it was different, you can definitely feel free to enter this information in. It's also going to ask me if the pay to email and phone number are the same as my service location. I'm going to say yes. So I'm going to click that box and it's going to populate the information. The last required address would be your mail to address. Here you have the option to either copy your service location, your pay to location, or if it was different from either one of those, you could fill in the information yourself. I'm going to just say it's the same as my service location. So it's going to populate that information in for me. And then again, I'm going to say that my email and phone number is also the same as my service location. And that my preferred communication is email. That is the last required address in this application. However, you will notice that you have the option to enter in either a prior authorization, a remit to, a legal, or a medical records request address. If those are different from the addresses above and you would like to enter in that information, you can simply open it up by clicking the plus sign, and that's going to give you the option to enter in all the information. If you start entering a piece of information, you must complete all the information in order to continue. You cannot just complete part of the information. If you don't have anything to add, you could close it up by hitting that button again, and then we can save and continue. The next panel that we need to fill out would be service location information. It's just a few questions regarding the service location and what you may accept at that location. So first thing we're going to ask is if you're accepting new patients with special needs. I'm going to check yes. It's going to ask if you have any age restrictions. If you do, you would simply check the box and tell us what ages you will accept at the service location. Today, I am not going to do that. I'm going to uncheck it and say we don't have any age restrictions. Next, we're going to ask you about accepting new patients. You could accept existing patients only, new patients, or family members. So I'm going to say we're accepting new patients. And then we also ask what your preferred patient gender is. You can select female, male, or transgender, or if you have no restrictions in this service location, you can simply click no restrictions. We also have the box to opt out of the provider directory. This is in regards to the provider lookup that is located on the Vermont Medicaid website. This is a great tool for members to be able to go out and see what practices and locations are accepting new patients. So we would like you part of that network if possible. So once you've filled out all of the information, I'm going to hit save and continue. The next panel is the Organization tab. So we're going to ask you two pieces of information here. What is your organization type and what is your tax classification? So for today, I'm going to say that my organization type is I'm an individual and my tax classification is going to be an LLC. If any of the below information is applicable to you, you would simply click the box. So if you are registered with the Secretary of State, you would check the box and enter in your business start date. If you are incorporated, you would check the box and you would enter in the incorporation date, and so on and so forth. Today we're going to say that none of these apply to us, so we're going to leave them blank. We're going to hit save and continue on the bottom. This is going to bring us to our next page, which is the credentialing information. This is where you're going to enter information associated to your license and credentials. So if you have a degree that you would like to enter, you can enter it here. This is not required, but we do recommend that you do enter the information if you've got it. The license is going to be a required field, so I'm going to hit Create New so that I can enter in my license information. This is going to populate a box where I can enter my license number, which state it was issued, and the board. It's also going to make me enter my start date, my effective date of my license, and my end date. Once all that is entered, you can hit save. And that you'll see that it has populated here. If you have more than one license, you can simply hit Create New and enter as many licenses as you may hold. In the beginning, we checked that we were Medicare enrolled, so I'm going to enter in the information regarding my Medicare participation. So again, I will hit Create New, and this will bring up a box in order for me to enter that Medicare information. I do want to be considered for Medicare crossover claims as I'm billing primary claims to Medicare, so I'm going to check the box. I'm going to enter in my Medicare number and which type of Medicare I am enrolled with. So I'm an professional individual, so I'm going to say Medicare Part B. I'm going to enter in my effective date and my end date. And I'm going to hit save. You will notice that it only allowed me to enter one Medicare type at a time. So if you are enrolled with Medicare A, B, D, you would simply hit Create New, and you would do this process again, just checking Medicare Part A, D, and so on and so forth. We're going to ask you if you are enrolled in another state Medicaid program. If you check yes, it will open up a box in order for you to tell us which program in which state and what your effective dates are. I'm going to hit no, that we are not enrolled in any other Medicaid program, which is going to take that box away. If you have a DEA, you would enter in the DEA information here by simply creating new. You can enter in your DEA number, your effective date, and your end date, and hit save. And you'll notice that if you enter something that doesn't match what it is required, then it's going to tell you. So I knew that a DEA number had to have 2 letters followed by 7 digits, but I entered it in as 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's going to say you can't enter that, that isn't valid. So I'm going to go ahead and fix that. And then I'm going to hit save. Once you've completed all the necessary information on this page, you can hit save and continue. The next page that we're going to talk about is the provider type information. It's going to ask me if I'm applying as a primary care provider. If I am, I can simply click yes. And then I can also enter in information regarding CLIA. So if I have an active CLIA that I want to enter, I would enter that information here. I can hit Create New. Enter in my CLIA number, enter in my CLIA type. I'm going to say this is a regular, and my effective date, and my end date. And then I can hit save, and my CLIA is populated here. After I've answered these two, I can hit Save and Continue. The next panel that we're going to go over is the Other tab. This is where we're going to put in information regarding our license or our language and our malpractice information. So the first box that we have here is Languages. So again, we're going to hit Create New to add a language. There's a drop-down box with languages available. I'm going to say English, and I'm going to hit Save. I'm also going to say that we have a couple other languages here in this office. So again, I'm just going to create a new entry, and I'm going to say we also speak Spanish, and I'm going to hit Save. And you'll see that they just populate one after the other. You can have as many in here. So if there's multiple languages spoken at your facility or your service location, you want to just make sure that you enter them in there. Once you've entered all the language information, you can enter in any certifications that you may hold. So if you have certifications that you want to report, you would simply hit Create New and let us know which specialty. So if you had multiple specialties, you would tell us which specialty this certification applied to. We only have one, so we'll just select our one specialty. And which certification type, and we'll just say we're here for American Board of Allergy. You would tell us the effective date and the end date. And hit Save. I do want to note that there is a box here for other certification and certification number. So if you had another certification that wasn't listed here and you chose other, it would require that you enter in which other certification and which certification number is applicable here. We're going to go back to our American Board of Allergy and hit Save. And again, you can list as many certifications as you hold. So if you hold more than one, just go ahead and hit Create New again. If your service location has a website, you can report that here. Just make sure that you start with HTTP or HTTPS. This allows it to be a valid URL to report out onto our provider lookup. It is required that you enter in your malpractice information. So I'm going to hit Create New to enter that information. You're going to select whether it's professional liability or comprehensive. I'll say professional liability for today. You have to enter in your name of carrier and your policy number. You also have to enter in your coverage of aggregate and your amount per occurrence. And you'll notice that I didn't enter any special characters here. The system won't allow any dollar signs or commas, so you want to stick just to numeric entries only. Okay, once you've entered in the effective and end date, you can hit Save. There is a question below the malpractice information just asking if you've been involved in any malpractice suit within the last 10 years. If you choose yes, you would be required to enter in the information regarding that suit here. If you choose no, that goes away and you can move on. It's going to ask for any medical related organization here. This is not a required field, so if you don't have that information to enter, you necessarily don't need to, but you can by simply creating new. So I am going to save and continue this page. And we are going to move on to the EFT tab. So the Electronic Funds tab, it gives you the option to let us know if you would like to be considered for electronic funds transfer. So it defaults to no. Do you wish to enroll for electronic funds transfer? If you click yes, it opens up the box in order for you to give us that information. You'll notice that the provider information is pre-populated, as well as the provider identifier information. You have the option to give us provider contact information, agent information, agency information, retail pharmacy information. However, it's not required. But if you have this information and you want to report it to us, you can simply click the plus sign. It will open it up and you can give us that information. What is required on this page would be your financial information. So you would want to put in the financial institution name, and I am making this information up for the purposes of today. You would want to put in the routing number, what type of account, you can select either a checking or a savings, and your account number. You also have the option for your preferred ID to be your tax ID number or your NPI, so you can toggle back and forth between those, whichever you prefer. And then that is completed this page. I do want to note at the bottom here that it does state whether or not you're going to send us a voided check or a bank letter. This is not required with Vermont Medicaid. You do not need to send us a voided check or a bank letter with your EFT entry. So once you've completed all this information, you can hit save and continue. Now we're on to the disclosure section. Every provider is required to fill out the provider self-disclosure. You'll notice that there is also subcontractor, ownership and control, managing, and business transaction. So we're going to start with the provider self-disclosure. The status right now is new, which means it's not been done, and we have to have all of these completed before we can move on to the next page. So I'm going to click Create New to create a new provider self-disclosure. This is going to bring up a page where it's going to ask me a series of questions. And I want to note that it's very important to read each one of these questions carefully. They all default to yes, so you want to make sure that you are answering them appropriately. It's going to give you the provider information at the top, and then it's going to go right into those series of questions. For every question, if you answer yes, there's a box below. This box is intended for you to give us more information as to the circumstances surrounding your answer of yes. If you click no, that box goes away. So again, it's very important that you read each one of these carefully because depending upon the question depends on whether you're going to answer yes or no. I'm going to go down these for today because I have read these questions. Next section here is my education. I'm going to hit no. You're going to see all these boxes disappearing, so I don't have to give more information on it. And then once I answered the top part of these questions, it's going to ask me to provide the information regarding who would be contacted in the event of an audit. So you want to enter that information appropriately. Again, there's several different places throughout this application that we ask you for contact information, and these contacts may be different depending upon your practice. The contact information for the credentialer may be different than the contact information for somebody who would be involved if there was an audit. And you'll notice that once again, my address went through the USPS software, and I'm going to accept the changes. I'm also going to give the phone number for auditing purposes. The next address that we're going to give is the physical location of your records. So as noted here, this can't be a PO box because this again is where your records are stored. So I'm going to enter in that information. I'm going to tab through and let it go through that software again. I'll allow the changes. And I will put in the phone number of whoever would be contacted in the event we needed to know more about your medical records. It's going to keep asking me a couple questions here. And one thing I do want to note here why it's important to read these questions, especially as far as the tax question goes, because the way that it reads, it says, I declare that I am currently not in good standing with my taxes. So if you read that quickly or didn't read it at all, you might think that yes, I am in good standing. However, that this question says you're not in good standing. So I'm going to check no because I am in good standing. So you want to really make sure that you are reading these questions fully and completely. So these other ones I have read, and I'm going to select no. Once I've answered all the questions and entered all the address information, I can hit save. That's going to complete my provider self-disclosure. If at any time I need to edit my provider self-disclosure, so say you're completing this on behalf of the provider and the provider wanted to go back to check your entries, if you click anywhere in this white box, it's going to bring up that provider self-disclosure and you will have the ability to edit it. You would simply just click the edit button over here. Anytime you see a pencil icon, it means you can edit. And it is populating all of that information that we just entered. And you have the ability, or the provider would have the ability, to review the answers and make any changes if needed before you actually submit the application. So I'm going to X out of here because we don't want to make any changes right now. So now we're going to move on to subcontractor disclosure. If you don't have any one of these disclosures, you still have to make an entry to be completed in order to continue. So I'm going to first go to subcontractor and I'm going to say that I don't have any subcontractor disclosures. So you'll notice that all the information is populated here. The first question is, has the provider had business transactions with any subcontractor totaling more than $25,000 during the preceding 12-month period? I'm going to select no. When I select no, all of the information disappears. So I can simply click save. And that completes that section for me. I'm going to do the same thing with ownership and control interest. I'm going to hit create new. And again, I'm going to answer no to the first question, that I don't have any individuals or corporation with ownership or controlling interest. So I'm going to hit no, it goes away for me, and I can hit save. But of course, if you have these, you would want to fill out the information. What I will do is say that I have a managing employee. So I will hit create new. And I'm going to say, yes, there is managing employees associated with this provider's organization. So the first thing it's going to say is, what is the relationship of the entity to the provider's organization? I'm going to say that this is my managing employee. And I'm going to say, who is this actual person? So I'm going to put that information in here. You are going to have to give the social security number of that managing employee and their date of birth. And just like in every other area, as soon as I tab through that zip code, it's going to go through the USPS software. I'm going to accept the changes for today. I'm going to enter in my managing employee's email address. And I'm going to enter in an effective date, when they started. We'll say they're fairly new and they started today. You can put an end date here. However, it defaults to the end of time, as I'm sure you don't know at that time when that managing employee is going to be end dated. It's going to ask you if this person has ever been convicted of a criminal offense. If yes, you would want to create new here and enter in the information. I'm going to hit no, so that's going to disappear. And again, it's going to be asking me if this person has participated or has controlling interest in Vermont Medicaid or another state Medicaid. You would enter in the information here if applicable. I'm going to hit no for today. And same situation. You want to make sure that you read these really carefully. If you hit no, you don't need to provide more information, but if you have yes to these, you would need to provide the information as stated in the box below. So I'm going to say no. Once you've entered all of that information, you can hit save. And that will complete our managing employees. So same with the business transaction. I'm going to create new. And I'm going to say I have no suppliers with business transactions, and I'm going to hit save. So you'll notice now that all of my statuses are complete, so I can navigate and save and continue. However, if you had multiple disclosures, multiple managing employees, multiple subcontractors, you can simply keep hitting create new to create new entries for those individuals. Once you're fully completed, you can hit save and continue. This is going to bring us to the attachments section of our application. So the system is designed to only require attachments that are applicable to this application. So what it's requiring is that the provider provides us with a W-9, their professional license, their proof of liability insurance, and a CLIA certificate because we stated that we have an active CLIA. The top section of this page is designed to tell you what is needed for the application. You can see right now all the requirements say no, it has not been met. We need all of these to say yes in order to navigate past this page. To do so, down below under Attachment Details is where you're going to action each one of these attachments. The recommendation is that you attach these electronically. So in order to expedite your application and it goes smoother and automatically come to DXC, once you hit submit, you want to do this electronically. If you choose another method such as mail or email or fax to send us these attachments, your application, once you've submitted it, will sit in a pending status waiting for attachments. And you have 7 days to get us those attachments. If they're not to us within those 7 days, then your application is denied and you would have to start over. So we highly recommend that you submit these attachments to us electronically. And I'm going to show you how to do that today. So the first one that I'm going to action is the W-9 form. So I'm going to come down to Attachment Details and I'm going to hit Create New. So here's my transmission method and here are my options. Again, I can submit this by mail, electronic, email, and by fax. I'm going to select electronic only and I'm going to select that we're doing our IRS W-9. So it has to match what is listed up top. So I'm going to say my W-9 form, and then I'm going to upload the file off of my computer. So I'm going to hit Select Files, and I'm going to select my W-9, and I'm going to hit Open. It's going to upload, and then I can hit Save. Now you'll notice that I have an entry down here under my details with my file, and the requirement has now been met for my W-9 form. Now I'm going to move on to my professional license. Again, I'm going to hit Create New. I'm going to select that my transmission method is electronic. I'm going to select my professional license. And I'm going to upload my file. And I'm going to hit Save. Now I have a yes in that field. Next is my proof of liability insurance. My transmission method is electronic. My attachment type is my professional license, or I'm sorry, my proof of professional liability. And I'm going to select my file. Now, just to note too, the file name does not need to match the attachment type. You're matching the attachment type by the one that you choose here, but the file name needs to be the W-9, but it doesn't need to necessarily say W-9 in here. You'll notice that I just have a W. It doesn't have to match the name exactly. So the last one is our CLIA certificate. So create new. And I'm going to say electronic only, my CLIA cert. And I'll just select something else so you'll see that it doesn't, I could have another W-9 here. It doesn't have to match exactly. So now we've met all of our requirements. So the last one we have is our CLIA certificate. So I'm going to hit Create New. Again, I'm going to choose Electronic. This time my attachment is my CLIA certificate, and I can select the file for my CLIA and hit Save. So now you'll notice that all the requirements have been met for my attachments. And again, the yes doesn't mean that you've uploaded it. The yes just means that you've actioned it below. So whether you choose electronic, mail, fax, or email, once you've actioned what you're going to do with it, that's when the requirement has been met. So once you've uploaded all that information, you can hit Save and Continue. And this is going to bring us to the final page of our application. This is the Agreement and Submit page. So you'll notice that the top is the terms of agreement, and it's got our legal name and our contact name, the information that we entered from the beginning. You want to read over the information very carefully, and then you can hit Proceed. Once you hit Proceed, it's going to populate our general provider agreement with Vermont Medicaid. So you want to make sure that you scroll through this and read it very carefully. You do have the option to print if you'd like, or you can even save a copy if you wanted to save it to your computer. Either one would be perfectly fine. Once you've read it over, you can hit I agree, which means you agree to the general provider agreement, and it's going to ask you to confirm that yes, you do agree. So you would hit click yes, which would check the box that you agree to it. The next thing that we're going to ask you is your portal registration details. This information is important because this will give you the invitation upon the approval of your application to the provider portal, which allows providers to manage their information and make updates as needed. So whoever is going to get those portal registration details or the invitation to the portal, you would want to enter that information here. The invitation would allow whoever gets that registration direct contact with the provider's information. So we're going to enter in the information here. Enter in the birthday, and the birthday and the Social Security are important, the last four of the Social, because you will have to verify that information to verify the identity of the provider. Once you've entered the portal registration details, you can head down to the signature. So this is signing the application. So the first thing that you want to do is click I accept that the provider agrees to the terms and conditions. Then you can enter in the last name. This is your electronic signature. And you do have the option to give DXE and the Department of Vermont Health Access any comments that you would like. So if there's some sort of special circumstances surrounding your enrollment application, you would be able to tell us in this section. The next thing you're going to do is enter an email address to verify this application. This is important to do so because this person is going to get a verification code prior to being able to submit this application. So you have 10 minutes. Once you hit request verification code, you have 10 minutes in order to use that verification code. So you want to be sure that you are actually ready to submit this application. You do have the option at this time to finish later. So if you needed to navigate away from the application, if you didn't have time to complete it, if the provider needed to review it before you submitted it, you do have the option to finish it later. But once you are ready to submit your application, that's when you can request the verification code. So I'm going to go ahead and click that box. And what this is going to do is process through, and it's going to send the verification code to the email address I stated right here. And this is a very quick process. It comes very soon after you hit that verification code request. So once I receive that, I'm going to enter that information in. And you need to enter it in exactly as it is stated in the email. So for instance, in my email, it has capital letters. So I want to make sure that I use capital letters when I enter the verification code here. You can copy and paste off of your email, so feel free to do so. I just did that here. Once you have that verification code entered, the submit button now is highlighted and I'm able to submit this application. So I'm going to click submit. And it's going to verify, do you want to submit this application? And I'm going to say yes. Once I say yes, and once it's been submitted, you'll get a confirmation. It's going to say, congratulations, you've successfully submitted your provider enrollment application. It's going to refer you to your tracking number. So if you wanted to take it down at this point, you could. But again, remember, it is in the email that once you registered in the beginning. If you decided that you needed to send your attachments by mail, by email, or by fax, there is a cover sheet available here. You would want to use this cover sheet because it's going to give the enrollment department all the necessary information to determine where the attachments go to, which application they're supposed to be attached to. So make sure that you use that cover sheet. And of course, if you have any other questions after you've submitted your application or during the application process, you have the option to contact the provider enrollment team. Here's the email address and the contact number. Thank you very much for visiting this training video today, and please let us know if you have any further questions or comments.